Hurricane Florence has ensured that there's very little, if any, fabric wing flying going on in the southeast. Fortunately, we were able to get out over the past few days prior to the storm. We will look at how Jim progressed through his assignment of 3 specific tasks the last time that we met. But more importantly, I want to talk about what is the definition of a beginner PPG pilot, an intermediate PPG pilot, and what things are relegated strictly to advanced PPG.
Good job, Hammer.
All right. Watching. There are certainly tasks that fall clearly within the skill set of the intermediate pilot. Determining flyable weather all on your own. Maintaining your gear. Making the decision to upgrade to more advanced gear. Some of the more subtle skills that an intermediate pilot may need to develop are things like determining if a particular field is going to be safe on a given day, or if maybe that it's only safe on certain days. We'll certainly talk more about that, and that was one of the reasons that I wanted Jim to work his way through those tasks. In any event, I got out and flew, and it took Jim a while to get ready. By the time he got airborne, I was back on the ground and got involved in a discussion with a fellow pilot who wants to take up paragliding, and I never got back in the air with Jim. This is not Nebraska. Although there's plenty of places to land, there's also plenty of places to get hung up in tall stands of trees and power lines, property lines. Roads make particularly poor choices for an engine-out landing, especially in the Carolinas. That's where all the power lines parallel the roads. If you're going to make an off-field landing after an engine out, you need to have a plan ahead of time instead of trying to figure it out the day your motor finally gives up. In addition to always having an out chosen for every second of your flight, there is no substitute for altitude. Altitude can make up for a lot of bad decisions. Familiarity with your glide ratio and your glider's characteristics only come through practicing this maneuver over and over again. It also never hurts to have firmly embedded in your mind where the prevailing winds are coming from during your flight. Rather than building these skills becoming a burdensome task, make it a habit of going out every single time when you come in for a landing. Attempt one of these power-off glides as if you were approaching the field with the plan that you're going to go around and come back in and do it a second time. Maneuver, control your glide, maybe S-turn for a little altitude dissipation, and then see where you end up. Try to judge altitude by looking out at the horizon. If you're fairly new at paragliding, consider a secondary electronic altitude indicator of some sort. There's lots of products out there that can help you determine what your current altitude is. It will build familiarity with how much altitude you need to maneuver and just how much distance you can cover with a given altitude underneath your wing. When you're maneuvering like this, make your power changes as smooth as you possibly can. It's not all or nothing. It's not full throttle or whatever it takes to keep you level or idle. There's lots of power ranges, and if your carburetor's tuned correctly and your power band of response is wide enough, there's many infinite power ranges that you can choose from. Transition between them very, very slowly and make the motor do exactly what you want for power output and pitch control. Here's Jim getting ready to launch. but by now I needed fuel, so I was coming in for a landing. Right-hand turn now. Alright. Alright, now we'll follow with a left-hand turn. Go back to the left. A little steeper, a little steeper. Very nice. Now go back to the right. Steeper, steeper. Hold that brake down, hold that brake down. Very nice. Go back to level flight. And pick a heading so the sun's not in your eyes. And pull both brakes down about 2 or 3 inches, or right to about shoulder level. And you'll feel that thing slow down. And when it gets slow, I want you to let up on one brake and you'll turn in the opposite direction. A key factor in getting the most out of these back-to-back maneuvers is allowing the aircraft to stabilize before starting the next maneuver. And match the brakes to stop the turn and go the other way. I was negligent and didn't take the time to remind Jim of that. So if you do happen to practice these type exercises on your own, make sure you let everything stabilize before you get started. Alright, so what I want you to work on, Jim, is when you get very close to the runway, like 20 feet below the trees anyways, I want you to just come in on the power and stay at the same altitude about halfway down the field before you climb out. Oh, shoot. Alright, Jim, I want you to try something now. I want you to try an idle turn toward the runway and see if you can make 90-degree turn without getting too low from where you're at. You're carrying some power, I can tell.
Still try to practice on shortening my approach by bleeding off a lot of altitude.
Yeah.
So I cut myself short on all those and a little bit more comfortable.
Okay, so
going over the trees.
So the 3 things that I had you work on all have an application, right?
Uh-huh.
Was adjusting the trimmers.
Yep.
So the application there is that you don't have to fly the wing 100% of the time.
Right.
Yeah, the trimmer thing is good to know, and we get into, you know, speed related issues like you're not penetrating a headwind or whatever. But the real point of the exercise is that you're not needing to fly the wing 100% of the time. Okay, so the second thing was the steeper turns, and the steeper turns, there's a lot of applications there, and one of the biggest ones coming is just how much space do you need to turn this thing? Can you turn inside a 2-acre field? Can you turn inside a 5-acre field? Can you turn inside a 1-acre field? And how much bank do you need to be able to do that? All right. So, and then the slow flight thing. If you apply slow flight, can you turn in that radius? And how long does it take for you to recover to full flying speed from slow flight? That's the other side of that.
That's a good point, because I did try much slower speeds turning.
Okay.
And it's amazing. You can carve pretty good, especially whichever side you say right. Throwing the brake down and adding your left on top of that.
Yeah.
It really does shorten the radius tremendously.
Well, what's happening in that point is you're rolling into the wing and then you're slowing the wing down, so you're pulling on the wing at a higher angle of attack, and it's actually pitching the wing into the relative wind, and that's what's increasing or decreasing your turn radius, increasing your rate of turn over the ground. Yeah. What is an intermediate pilot? What is a beginner pilot? What is an advanced pilot? So, advanced is pretty rarefied air. You know, if you're not out there doing sats or infinity tumbles, or full stalls on the wing and full-on aerobatics, everything else beyond the beginner stage, taxi to take off on, is intermediate pilot territory. And my whole point of this is to say that the intermediate pilot has a reason for everything that he does. So, you know, how you lay the wing out. Whereas a beginner might lay the wing out, he's still trying to figure out how to clip into the wing. Whereas the intermediate pilot is saying, I'm doing this in a specific way. I wish I'd have been there to see that, because I think that we could have probably gotten through that. Go ahead.
When I botched the first of the 3 botched takeoffs, you know, I really concentrated on the wing. The problem being where I was at, the northern runway, the short one, that's where I'd gone down there, made the hard turn, come back up, was taxiing everything, and the wing went over a little bit too far. It was a little too tight a turn to try, really. But it was very, like I said, probably 130 degrees while you make that turn and come back.
Right.
All right, so when I finally lost the wing there, I said, okay, I'll taxi back to the truck. My wing is so large, it barely, I mean, only a foot maybe on each side of where the tall grass is.
Yeah.
And so I concentrated a lot on the placement and the setup for my wing. You know, I didn't want it to dip off into the heavy grass right off the beginning or something like that. So, and it didn't. But it.
Well, you know, I just watched a video of Andy McGavin flying this thing.
Oh, really?
With a 25-meter wing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It must be pretty sporty.
Well, and that's one of the things, I wish I had a smaller wing in a lot of applications. I think it's...
I wonder if we dare let you fly that 31-meter Muse 3 with this vehicle. We'll have to check the weight range.
Yeah. So, you know, this is 230, no fuel, and then I'm right at 200, so...
I also wish that this thing had a clutch, because those minor, it would save so much, those minor issues would save so much hassle.
The way the lines got into here, they came from this way, though. I'm almost positive the way it was wrapped around my hub here.
So how many lines did you get?
It looks like everything except the brake and these. And one, whether it's just, you know, frayed, maybe not cut all the way through, but it needs to be replaced. So that's what I'm saying. Everything
but it's all on one side, correct?
Yes, it's all on one side.
Okay, so you've got... All right, here's another good thing. This is intermediate pilot skill. Now, you're faced with equipment maintenance or repair. So the beginner pilot is going to send it out, or he's going to ask his buddies. And now I'm saying, as the intermediate pilot, you could make the decision to try to repair it yourself. Go in your manual, look at the line drawing, and find the nomenclature, the designator for every single line that's damaged.
Right.
All right. Your manual may not have the line, the length specs, but somebody that sells lines in a day, or Elizabeth at, in Florida down there, she can go to the manual. If you tell her, I need a A17, a B32, and 33, she can make up those lines and they will match. When you get them shipped to you, we'll lay them all out so that they're laid out with the side of the wing that's undamaged, and we'll untie and put all of those lines in so that the repair side matches the factory side, and then you'll be good to go.
I'd like to do that.
Let's do that.
Marco, on the first repair, couldn't use the manual that I had for the T-Ride.
I bet Elizabeth or the gal out there from Lines in a Day will be able to make that cross-reference with the line nomenclature. But you're going to have to lay the wing out and do an inventory of what was damaged. Now, this is not your manual, this is my manual, but, you know, if you knew that you had BR23 was damaged and BR21 was okay, you need to order BR23. If you give her that number and tell her your size and your wing, she'll be able to make that up. And then there's also a correlator for the type of material that it's made out of. So, and all we would look to do is put that all back together exactly like the side that's undamaged, because the wing flew until you got it into the prop. So that's just unfortunate.
Yeah. I mean, it was nothing but beautiful this morning. It was just excellent. It was nice, calm winds like that. I could feel the trim difference. I could actually feel the trim difference. Nice, calm winds like that. I even turned around and pulled one trim in some and left the other one like it was, just to see how it would do. And it didn't change as much as I thought it was going to change, but it did. So, like I said, I had a lot of playtime today. It was fun. It was fun on that.
Good.
And
it sounds like you got in multiple approaches to the field.
Yes. Oh, I practiced. I did maybe two low levels, one touch and go, and then I just tried to set myself up more for the approach and making shorter approaches.
Good.
So in other words, I'd get to the end of the field, just go past the field and just crank it hard on one side and turn back and then try to line myself up. Still holding too much altitude, but at least I was turning quicker and still would make it maybe at the end.
The only problem with that is even if it's quote unquote dead calm on the ground is you really should keep them all in the same direction, into the wind on final approach.
It was that nice. I mean,
well, all right, I suppose that is possible, but you know, even if there's a 2-knot breeze, it's going to change the geometry of your pattern because you're going to be going slower upwind and then you're going to be going a little faster downwind.
There was, I mean, you could feel it on the ground.
Right.
Second takeoff.
But to build the recognition skills necessary to say, all right, I'm going to come right in over the trees and I'm going to land as short as I can. One of the things that you can do is lay your wing bag out there. You don't want to leave your wing bag out there. Throw a soda bottle out there and say, I am going to try to land on that soda bottle. Now, safety's got to rule the day. You know, don't make an approach that's dangerous because you're so fixated on that soda bottle. You know, but give yourself a target and try to shorten that pattern. Not necessarily the turns so much as just the, you know, could you clear a 50-foot obstacle and make it into the field, and how much room do you need to do that? And if it's easy, stop and shut down and kick that soda bottle 30 yards further towards the trees, and now try it coming over the trees and try to do a shorter approach simply for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
Well, all of this discussion with Jim is still very preliminary. Him implementing the assignment items has taken some time, and unfortunately we've had to deal with the hurricane and the results of the hurricane, and even prior to that, an entire week of media hype leading up to the hurricane that prevented most of us in the Carolinas from doing any flying at all. Additionally, Jim unfortunately damaged his wing by an errant attempt to shut the Green Eagle off with the kill switch. It's a momentary contact switch, and when he eased up on the switch to flare, when the motor roared back to life, Jim's prop caught his lines. Very unfortunate. So he's got some repair work to do. We'll work on that. Please consider a Patreon support. For those of you that have, thank you very much. I would really much rather nobody makes more than a $1 per month contribution to this effort. Next time we'll talk about airport traffic patterns and how they're perceived by general aviation pilots insofar as what they expect from us and what we should expect from them. On the grass.
That is cool.
Gotta have hobbies.